Ladies and gentlemen, happy Grammys night. Unfortunately, we're not watching the Grammys. We're out here because we're talking Knicks, baby. Bum 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 bum. Y'all ready for this? Okay, maybe we'll delete that. But it is January 28th, 2018. Is that good luck? No. I am here with two of my trusted colleagues. Jake Storielli back on the pod. I missed a couple weeks due to mountain life and just being a bad person in general. But some of our stalwarts are here. Uh, MVP, normally MVP of the show, Greg Poon. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for calling me MVP. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was mostly a lie, but we're also joined by Tom Piccolo, our 3-point only takes layups or 3-point specialist. Tom Piccolo, what do you have?
I'm hoping for most improved player here.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be me or Greg. You can't once you're at the top. But glad to have you, boys. Greg, how was your weekend?
I had a nice little weekend. I didn't do much. I don't know. I sat around and watched the television. But I got a funny story about last week's pod.
Okay.
So last week, I forgot to convert from a YouTube to MP3 so we can upload the pod.
Sure.
And then the next day, I went to work. I was like, I still have to do this. So I was doing it on my work computer. Went on a random website. I do it, click convert, start downloading it, pop up on my work computer, starts going, you have a pornographic virus.
Yes.
And I was like, what? No, what kind of virus? Because, like, you get those fake viruses, but they never say they're pornographic.
Yeah.
Was that
That's a tough look.
Was that a good story? I don't know.
Kinda, yeah. It seemed like the virus protector took an obnoxious step that it didn't need to.
I don't know.
The pop-up blocker.
They don't need to specify what kind of virus it is. Like a virus is a virus. We don't need to be...
Exactly. I don't know. So how are you, Jake?
I'm good. I had a relaxing weekend. I've got a busy week next week. Heading to the mountains a little bit. Super Bowl weekend. Some friends from out of town. Excited for that. This weekend was pretty low key. Spent some time with the lady and the dog. Watched some basketball. Just watch the Sixers kind of fall apart against Oklahoma City. But we don't talk that here. We talk Knicks, baby. And Tom, any pornographic viruses? What do you have this week?
I don't have as many of those. I've been kind of telling my saga of my house hunting, my condo hunting every week, updating the people. And I've been getting Twitter DMs every day from our listeners being like, Tom, what's the deal? Do you have a place? Do you not?
Right.
And, I think I told the story on the pod last week. Though we made an offer. The woman who was selling decided to move back in. So that is off the table. We're back to square one here. So I'm going to probably not have any updates on that for a while. But in other updates, I'm growing a beard.
Yeah.
So big stuff is still happening. It's just I don't have a house yet.
Me and Greg have the anti-your facial hair going right now.
Yeah, you guys look more professional than I.
So. I look 14.
I haven't shaved in, I don't know, a week. I just don't grow facial hair.
The Irish curse. No, that's something else. But let's dive in. We're going to do a little bit of a different format this week. We're going to mix things up a little bit now that we got the dream team together. We're still going to start off. We got to talk the games from this week. A little Knicks tape rewind. 3 games this week. We lose at Golden State. I mean, that's every team expects that, especially when you don't have your best player playing. Kristaps sat out. We then went on to the Denver Nuggets, a game I was at live, which I have to tell you was a real treat, especially watching the Nuggets go for 130, 60% from the field, only 50% from 3 on 28 shots. It looked like great basketball from the Nuggets, even the Knicks at period of time, but stops were not in demand. And then the Knicks went on to beat up on the Phoenix Suns, and Enes Kanter let the world know about it. Thank the Lord. But we had another kind of tough 1-2 week. What in these games jumped out to you? What, any stat lines that jumped out to you? What do you think, Greggy?
I mean, what are we starting with, the Warriors or just in general? Because
Go through the week. What in general moments that stick out? What do you have?
I mean, Warriors game, nothing special. I mean, we went with the just pray defense for the first half. Didn't guard anybody. They just missed a ton of open shots. We were up at the half by 2, which was nice. You know, what I mean, you knew it wasn't gonna last, but that was fun while it lasted. Nuggets game, I don't know. Not much good was happening there. They just lit us up from beginning to end. We made it kind of close. Every time the Knicks kind of made a run, the refs kind of made like an iffy call. I mean, I wouldn't blame the refs at all for the loss. I would say that they didn't help, but the Knicks just gave up 1 million points and let the other team shoot 60%, which you're not going to win.
In a huge momentum sport, and again, I'm just going to keep pounding this into the floor until you guys realize that I was there. It's a huge momentum game, and you are absolutely right. Every time the Knicks were starting to get momentum, there was like just a cheap and one. I mean, there's a jump shot. They called a foul on Ron Baker that there was no contact, but that's on the Knicks for having Ron Baker. And so, Greg, continue.
Yeah. And they called back-to-back moving screens on the Knicks twice.
Tough.
Once in the first half and in the second half, which was just like, I mean, I guess those are moving screens, but people set a moving screen every single play. So, whatever. Last game of the week, the Suns game. I mean, we'll get to it, but Trey Burke scored 14 in a row at one point. I mean, that was good. We might have maybe not a superstar, but we might have something. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
The neighbors know my name, Trey Burke. Tombo, what do you think on the week as a whole? Who jumped out? What do you think?
Well, the first thing I want to point out is we make our predictions every week on the pod, and we say, we're going to go 2-1, 1-2. This is the swing game. I will say, on the last pod, I called myself out for getting everything exactly wrong. But sure. on this one, I got everything right. I called the 2 losses against the Warriors and Nuggets, the win against the Suns. That doesn't sound that impressive when you line it all up like that, but I did. So I'll pat myself on the back there. A couple of things. We don't need to talk too much about the Warriors game just because it didn't seem like Golden State was taking it too seriously to start. But I will say the Knicks played really hard, which is what you want to see, even without their star. Knicks were up 10 with 90 seconds left in the first half, and the Warriors closed out on an 8-0 run to get to that 2-point margin Greg talked about. And that kind of seems like something that's been a little bit of a pattern. I know Greg's mentioned it before that just before quarters end, just before halves end, it seems like the Knicks just kind of stopped playing. Have you guys noticed that?
Yes.
Sometimes literally, like nobody moving.
Yes.
And other times just lack of effort.
Yeah, and one thing that kind of shows that lack of effort is the Warriors outscored the Knicks 25-12 in fast break points. Put up 25 fast break points is I mean, usually the Knicks only give up 11 per game, so yeah, that's not great.
It's more than double.
That is more than double. So yeah, don't need to dwell too much on the Warriors there. But in Denver, the Knicks' lack of defense was really the story. They just couldn't get stops. You talked about it. Shot 60% from the field. Denver shot 20 of 26 at the rim, which is 77%, which would be by far the worst in the league. They also shot 50% from 3. So, yep, couldn't play any D. And then just going on to the Suns game, we were only up 4 at halftime, which was kind of surprising because it never really felt like this one was close. It always just seemed like the Knicks had a handle on it. But the game was really won in the third quarter when the Knicks outscored Phoenix by 10 there, and Porzingis went for 13 in that quarter. So I thought that was kind of the game-deciding factor there, was Porzingis going 5 for 6 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3. And in the fourth quarter was more garbage time, but we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss to also mention in the Nuggets game that Kyle O'Quinn and Tim Hardaway Jr. sat out, which a factor, not a 130-point factor, but a factor. Greg, a big, I don't want to say elephant in the room. Ron Baker started in Denver, and I have to give the floor to you on this topic because I know it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, so Kenny made a joke on Twitter. So, I mean, reports started coming out that Ron Baker was going to start, and it was like, is this real? Because Tim Hardaway Jr. has missed over 20 games this year, and Ron Baker has never started. We started with Dotson for a couple games. That didn't work. And then Lance Thomas has been the starter for like a very long time now, for like over a month. We just got used to Lance Thomas starting. And then all of a sudden, THJ's out again. I mean, obvious move is to start Lance Thomas, since that's what we've been doing. Well, Ron Baker starts instead. Kenny said the only thing that makes sense is that Hornacek made a joke that Ron Baker was starting. Then Ron Baker told his family, so Hornacek couldn't go back on it. So then he just decided to have Ron Baker start. And then the funny thing is, the game starts, Ron Baker's playing, and the announcers say Ron Baker has 30 friends and family members in the crowd, and they show people wearing Ron Baker jerseys. So I think that the fact that his family was there may have played a factor into him starting this basketball game, which is horrifying. One thing with the game before against the Warriors, he entered for the first time down 18 with a little over 2 minutes left. Next game was the game he started. Suns game, first time he enters is with about 4 something left, with the Knicks up 25. So him starting the game in between those is very questionable. I don't know what you're doing, Jeff. We all know that Ron does some suspect stuff, has flashes of good defense, but bad offense all the time and mediocre defense some other times.
Yeah, Greg, starting a player because his family is there is something that sounds like it would happen in high school, maybe D3 college, but
not even, Tom. Let me cut you off. As a prominent JV athlete, I remember games where parents would travel over an hour to get to the game, and that didn't change the lineup. That the coach would literally sit you down and be like, just because your folks are here doesn't mean you play. So if this has anything to do with reality, talk to me, Tom.
I can't imagine that it does, right? There has to be something more to this. Yeah, if Ron Baker started because his parents were there, we've got bigger problems, guys.
I don't want to say it's entirely because, but I don't see how it's not a factor the way this looks, because Tim Hardaway Jr. has missed a lot of games and Lance Thomas has always started, other than the Dotson games. And now this one game that his family's there and Tim Hardaway's out, he starts it. So that's a crazy coincidence.
Well, it's also funny that he's starting for, being a better defensive player, and it's the game that the opponents hang 130 on him. So even what he's supposed to be there for didn't work.
Yeah, and I don't want to start it as a Twitter rallying cry. I mentioned it a month and a half or so ago, and I wasn't saying fire Hornacek, but I was thinking because of the Knicks' hot start, that it kind of left him in a tough spot. Knicks Nation wants to win again, even though we're rebuilding, and we talked about consistency. But I don't know if we end up at the end of the year and Ron Baker has one start and it was in Denver with his family visiting, I fire him for that. I'm okay with that. Yeah. It's a bit of sarcasm, but not really. This is the NBA.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't look good. I don't know. But Ron Baker did start 13 games last year. I looked into that. So there's some precedent, which is good in a way, which is also bad in the fact that Ron Baker started 13 games last year.
So there's that. Let's try to put a positive spin on it. So over the 3 games, just cruising through box scores, I'm trying to look through kind of who had a good week. I'd say one thing, the biggest thing that jumps out in all 3 box scores for me is that against the Suns, our starters dominated, which we haven't seen too much. We usually see the bench come in with a pretty good split on the games we win. The starters really took it to the Suns, which, hey, if there's a team that you kind of have to, Phoenix is 1 out of about 5 of them. But I don't know. No one really had a special week. Nobody jumps off the page stat-wise. Tom, do you have a person who you think jumps out? Ideally in a good way. If not, let's hammer Ron Baker and Hornacek some more.
I actually was really impressed watching Beasley against the Warriors. I mean, those are some of the best wing defenders in the league. And he put up an efficient 21, 8 of 15 shooting, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. And he just has no fear at all, like no, regardless of who's guarding him. And I know I can be critical of Beasley sometimes in his defense, but I mean the dude he has no conscience when it comes to this stuff, and he'll get buckets on literally anyone. And so that was pretty cool to see that the Knicks have a guy who you could bring him off the bench and just know he's going to think he's the best player on the floor. And sometimes it's to his detriment, but recently it hasn't been. He's been just an efficient scorer, and that's something the Knicks need, especially off the bench.
And it's crazy how easy he makes it look. Some of those finishes at the rim, it looks like he's going in slow motion. He knows exactly what he's doing.
He's never impressed with himself either. Like he just always, every time he does like something spectacular, he just looks like, yeah, that's something I do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I don't know if I told you guys this. I actually saw him live at the Denver game. I was there.
You were there,
and
wow.
It is a weird mix of just being so calculated. Let me start over. So there's no plan. He catches the ball usually about 18 feet, and he's going to jab step. And he sees you make one move, and he has already envisioned the whole play in his head. It's freaky. He knows where he's going to end up. He knows where you're going to end up, and he's either going to get the bucket or get fouled. It was honestly, I've been googly-eyed about him all year, screaming, get him in the starting lineup, even though I know that's not the most efficient answer. But he's like, when he's going on offense, he looks like a top player in the league. If you showed someone games from all around the league, someone that never watched basketball, they would point at Michael Beasley and say, he's really good. So that's my test. Someone who doesn't know basketball saying Michael Beasley's any good.
Well, Jake, I brought up the game before, but it's total. I mean, he also put up 21 points on like 8 field goal attempts against the Nuggets. I mean, he really was. He put on a show, like you said. He was 1 for 1 from 3, and that's another impressive thing about him is he does this without much of a threat of a 3-point shot. Like he'll take it if he has to, and he's actually shot fairly well on him, but he's not a volume 3-point shooter. He just gets to the rim. And he's one of the few guys on the Knicks who draws contact and gets to the line and gets easy points that way. Not a lot of guys do that. Like Porzingis will try to get to the line with little sorts of tricks and like getting hit on the elbow. But it's like, if you want to make sure the ref calls a foul, you do it the way Beasley does it, by being aggressive and taking it to the hoop.
The only person in the Nuggets game on the Knicks with a positive plus minus that played over 1 minute was Michael Beasley. In a game they got outscored, well, it ended up at 12 points, but it was more ugly than that for most of the game. 29 minutes, 6 for 8, 1 for 1 from 3, 8 for 10 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 21 points, only 1 turnover. I mean, when it's right, it's right. I get that it goes wrong, but I'm not talking about that right now because we need a little positive light. Greggy, you want to pump Beasley up some more? You got someone else on the Knicks you want to talk about from this week?
I think we got to talk about Trey Burke. I mean,
let's just
do it.
Yeah, let's dive into it. I had a couple topics laid up, and I listed one as the Trey Burke show, because how could you not talk about it, and especially with all the trade talk, spoiler, which we have some more coming later in the show. But after Trey Burke, he's got Knicks Nation talking, and I feel like this is going to be one of those sandwich compliments where you got to bring down the fan base a little bit, Greggy, because they came in a little too hot. But tell them what's good.
Yeah. So even after he played a couple games. Like one, he looked fine. Then didn't even play in the next one. Then he played again. He looked pretty good. People were yelling for him to start already. I thought that was crazy. This guy was just in the D League. It's not like the Knicks were the only team allowed to sign him for the entire season up to this point. Nobody in the NBA signed this guy until a couple weeks ago. So I don't think that he's an NBA starter yet. But then this he went on a 14-point run. He scored 14 in a row by himself. It wasn't 14-0, but he scored 14 in a row by himself. And the way Jarrett Jack has been playing, this guy looks like he might be a better option to be the starter. I don't know. That's just a thought. Jared Jack has not looked very good. I mean, you could put Frank into start, but I don't know if he's ready for that. Maybe that might be better for Frank since he's not ready for a superstar role, and Trey Burke kind of gets buckets, which might make him better to be the backup point guard. I don't know, but I think this guy is going to be in the Knicks rotation very soon, and we'll see what happens with Jared Jack. So,
And Tom, I love something you said this week. And I think it's funny because with advanced stats and this, that, and the other, you can look at basketball in so many ways now. And there's positionless basketball, there's on ball defense, help defense, all of it on the court, off the court. You said it best when I like making things simple. I'm a pretty simple dude. And you said with Jared Jack as your point guard, who, start of the day, end of the day, he's your front line of the defense. And with Enes Kanter as your back line of the defense, you're just asking for you're asking for college teams to abuse you with that as your point guard and your center. So where I don't know if you want to start there, if you want to dive into Trey a little more, but what do you think, Hambone?
Yeah, so I mean, Burke's defense actually was very impressive. It's nice to have a guy who just tries. Like, I mean, Frank tries very hard, but Burke is a guy who he can be more of a two-way player at this point in his career. I do want to pump the brakes a little bit on all the love, and I only say this because I was watching the Phoenix game and I saw Burke, his first points. He scored 16, I believe, in the fourth quarter. But his first points came when the Knicks were already up 15, and they were predominantly against the Suns' bench unit. The Suns are already the 28th ranked defense in the league. So I love Trey Burke. I like what he brings off the bench. I would love to supplant Jared Jack's spot with Burke, but the 16 points in the fourth, they're predominantly in garbage time. That's I don't want to get too excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, this is one of the worst defenses in the league. But I'll say, like, what Burke brings to the table is someone who can get into the teeth of the defense. He can shoot a little bit. He's a threat in a pick and roll. And then on defense, he won't die on a screen like Jared Jack will. He's going to fight over the top of it. He's going to contest shots. He's a very good backup point guard. And I was thinking earlier today, like, who are the best backup point guards in the league? And, there aren't a ton of guys who are real game changers at that position. So having Burke there it's a huge plus. And so it's a great get for the talent evaluation team for the Knicks.
Yeah, I got something. I think one thing also to note is Trey Burke's a little guy. He's not very big. He's maybe 6 feet tall, and he was going against Isaiah Cannon, so that may have been a factor. Who is probably one of the only people in the league shorter than Trey Burke. So I'll help you pump the brakes, Tom. You're right.
Well, while you guys hit the brakes, let me hit the gas pedal, because a couple things, right? When it's a player like this, and I always said it with Beasley, like, take the name off the back of the jersey and think about what you're seeing, and don't think about the past. And you'd think about Michael Beasley different. I understand you can't do that. Trey Burke's 25 years old. He came into the league pretty highly touted. This dude was a stud in college, and he was the number 9 pick overall. He comes to Utah. They basically give him the keys to the kingdom. Guy starts 68 games. Not great percentages. He still ended up averaging 13 and 6. Think about how long the Knicks have been waiting for a point guard to go 13 and 6. But so he comes in, and his biggest problem is he doesn't really improve. The next year, his stats are almost identical, weirdly close. And by that time, you start to fall out of favor. The Jazz bring in, I don't know if that was the year they brought in Exum or when he came to town. So he ends up getting a shot of life. They trade him to the Wizards. He doesn't fit in. I mean, he's behind John Wall at the end of the day, but he's also an undersized guard, so he's going to have his struggles on defense. So now you put this into the whole picture, something that we give too much love for, but I totally think is a thing. Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr., teammates at Michigan. There's a sense of comfort there. it is what it is. It's not a huge thing, but it's something. We hype up Hernan Gomez all the time for being KP's boy, and there's something there. I'm not saying it makes Trey Burke a starting NBA point guard, but Trey Burke also has some pretty good shooting percentages. He shot, again, in limited action, in 57 games last year. He shot 44% from three. Again, only 1.2 per game, but that's something. In his 1.2 he's taken for the Knicks, he's shooting 43% so far. So I think it's an evolution of a few things, right? Undersized guards are showing more value. You can hide them on defense a little bit, and if they're more of a problem on offense than they are on defense, then they're still a net plus, where a lot of teams haven't looked at the smaller point guards that way in the past. And I think, this guy went to the D League. This guy was 9th pick overall. This guy was a stud in college. And I think, like you talked about his tenacity on defense a little bit and how it's nice to see that, which is hilarious. You shouldn't be hoping for that as an NBA team. But, maybe Trey Burke went to the D League. He got a little bit more of that dog in him. And he's still 25 years old. As young point guards in this league, you get abused. I don't care if you're 19 years old or if you're a senior coming out of college. You're still going to take your lumps because it's the biggest position you have to adjust to. So, boom, there's a little bit of a Jakey rant. Greg,
Hey.
You look ready to hop on.
Yeah, I know. I'll hop on with that. Yeah, Tom was wrong about pumping the brakes. I'm back with you. So the one thing I noticed when Trey Burke is playing is he's just knocking down shots. You don't expect this guy to come in out of the D League and be knocking down jumpers. You think there's a reason why he was out of the league. But I think he gained a lot of confidence and became a bucket getter in the D League. So now, or the G League, sorry. Now he's ready to come back into the NBA and do that. I got his G League stats up. 26.6 points per game, 5.3 assists. Shooting 48.9% from the field and 41.8% from three. Those are pretty good numbers. I mean, talent, clearly not the same level, but the 3-point line is the same distance. 41.8%, that's probably going to translate, hopefully. So think about that. I think he has the confidence. I think that's a big factor.
Tombo, you want to bring us back down to earth, or you want to pick yourself up a little bit now that me and Greg turned on you? What else?
No, I'm with you guys. I like Trey Burke as a player. I don't think. I'm curious. Do you guys think he should be the starting point guard with Frank coming off the bench, or what does all this mean?
I personally, I'll go first. I think at where the Knicks are at point guard, starter is an overrated statement. I think Frank has to get minutes either way, right? Whether it's 20 to 30 minutes, he's a young guy. You drafted him high. He has to get his minutes. Outside of that, I don't know if we're looking in a vacuum or the rest of this season, but if it's right now, if it's Jarrett Jack or Trey Burke, give me Trey Burke. I'd rather see someone with a little pep in his step than, for someone that I was giving golf claps for keeping the offense moving in Jarrett Jack. Greggy?
Yeah, and one thing that factors into it for me is Trey Burke seems a little bit of a bucket getter, so he might be better suited to be coming off the bench with Beasley, since you already got Porzingis and Tim Hardaway, and Courtney Lee's been hooping as of late, so he's been getting to the rim and scoring. So maybe we don't need to add a scorer. Maybe that'd be the perfect place to insert Frank and let him develop, give him less of a responsibility, make it easier on him, having those vets be able to take care of him. But also that's pretty risky, given how careless Frank plays at times. You don't want to start the game with that. So I don't know. I guess if I had to pick, I would say start Frank for the first couple games, see what happens with Burke coming off the bench.
Tom, your thoughts on your own question?
I've been a fan of starting Frank ever since things started to kind of go sideways back in December. So I like Burke as a piece coming off the bench for sure. I don't know that Frank's really ready to start and going against opposing starting caliber point guards, if that could potentially hurt his confidence if he doesn't do well. It's tough not being there day in and day out, knowing these guys' personalities. But one thing I want to say about Trey Burke, just to look out for, is he is shooting most of his shots from the mid-range. He's averaging 3 field goal attempts from the mid-range. He's shooting 63% on those shots, which is by far the best in the league from the mid-range. Granted, yeah, smaller sample size and all that, but I mean, that's just not a sustainable number. You'll have to expect those to come down. Even like the best mid-range jump shot shooters in the league are at around 50% from the field. So we can expect that to come down a little bit. But I love the way he plays. Right? People have compared his looks to Allen Iverson, and I'm not going to sit here and compare his game to a former MVP, but just in terms of that tenacity and just that swagger that he has, you could see little shades of it there.
He's like Allen Iverson with a better mid-range, I would say.
He's a better shooting Allen Iverson.
Yeah. Wow. One thing, I know I said he was a bucket getter, but Jake, you were at the game in Denver. He went for 18 and 11 assists, so he could dish it.
Yeah, he's someone like everything I said before. Like it all kind of adds up. He looks like someone who's fighting for his NBA life. And he looks like someone that has the talent that he shouldn't be at this point of his career fighting for his NBA life. And two things I wanted to bring up was, one, you mentioned that he was in the G League and every team had a chance to get him, which doesn't mean he's not a top, 60 point guard. It just means there's teams with like Frank and any prospect who they want to develop. So it doesn't mean this guy wasn't an NBA player per se. And the other perk of Frank, which I think is huge because I mentioned his defensive liabilities, is, hey, if there's one thing Frank can do, it's play defense right now. So if you want to do some lineups with the both of them, put Frank on the better defensive guy, let Trey kind of ease in. I think you can have some fun with that too. And it's funny, my final note on Trey Burke, which was going to be a lot more dramatic until you guys started bringing up Allen Iverson, was if there's someone's stats I want you to look at, and I'm not directly comparing them, but an undersized guard who's a dog who fully didn't figure it out until his about age 25, age 26 season is Kyle Lowry. I found myself on the stat page today. Again, Kyle Lowry's obviously worked on his game a ton, developed, and has gotten to where he is today, and such a tenacious defensive player. But man, look at some of Lowry's stats. Kyle Lowry, the all-star he is today, as a 23-year-old averaged 9 and 4. As a 25-year-old, as a 26-year-old in Toronto, he averaged 11 and 6, playing 30 minutes a night. So I just think the point guard position is, people give up on it too early. And maybe I hold on too long as a side effect of that. But guys like Manny Moutier, other guys that come into the league at 19, I'm not saying they're going to be great, but we set these lofty goals. They don't hit them in their first 3 years. They're not a LeBron type, and we start giving up on them. So I guess I'm gung-ho on Trey Burke. I'm not saying he's saving the franchise, but, I mean, if you had gun to my head, Trey Burke or Jarrett Jack right now, give me Trey all day.
And Allen Iverson averaged 31 in his age 25 season for comparison.
So, better mid-range. Any final
Jake,
thoughts on Trey? What do you got, Tom?
I thought you were going to go Patty Mills with the comparison.
Oh no, I am larger than that, baby.
You did. You went big, and I know I respect it. Yeah, I'm also interested in Frank playing a little more off ball in the shooting guard position. It's just kind of tough when you've got Courtney Lee and Tim Hardaway Jr. there, and I guess Ron Baker. Apparently,
no. That's I hate to stop people on the podcast. I'm stopping you, Tom. That's the Trey Burke show. I was gonna ease us in with just layup lines back in the day we used to call them. Do we want to talk about Cantor on Twitter? Is that even a thing anymore? Do we really care? You can tell by my voice I'm like half over it. Sure, it's fun, but at the same time, talking trash out of 21 in 2018, like there's part of that that's driving it into my chest. Greg,
Jake, can you tell the people what happened?
Well, I mean, there's been the LeBron stuff all year, which we've covered a little bit. And he's a social media guy. I got to chuckle out of Greg, the fact that he posts a picture with a teammate every day. Is that cool or weird? I don't know. Sure. But they played the Suns, coming off their 2 losses this week, playing the Weasley Phoenix Suns. Booker gets ejected from the game. And then after the game, the Knicks win. Cantor posts a picture of Devin Booker holding an L, saying, don't talk that trash, catch your L, young fella. Which, again, lighthearted and fun. And then it turned into him talking trash with Jared Dudley, which, okay, so I actually did like him saying that Jared Dudley already had a retirement body. That was pretty good. But Dudley hit him with the facts. Dudley was like, dude, you're the worst pick and roll defender in the NBA, and everyone knows it. So I don't know. I guess I like it. It's entertaining, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you're talking. It's the varsity team talking trash to the JV team after they scrimmage. Like, yeah, dude, you're the varsity team. Why is this happening? So Tom, I'm sorry. I thank you for jumping in, but Greg's my team swag guy, so I have to go to him first. Do we still like this? Do we not like this? What?
Well, I think this was a lot more context driven. I think there was a lot more to it than what you were saying. So originally during that game, Devin Booker fouled Tim Hardaway Jr. while he was on a fast break, like from behind while he was going up for a layup, and Tim Hardaway Jr. went down hard and was down for a little bit. And I mean, it was a little scary. So, I mean, didn't look like Devin Booker meant to do like anything vicious, but at the same time, he did something that like you don't do. That's like a rule, like an unwritten rule. Don't hit anyone from behind while they're going up for a fast break layup. So the Knicks were mad after that. They were already mad at Devin Booker. Then Cantor swatted Devin Booker and kind of got in his face, and Devin Booker shoved him. And then double technicals, ends up being Booker's second technical ejected. So Booker was being kind of a little annoying, as a very lighthearted word to say.
Instigated.
Yeah, he was trying. He's trying to start something, and he started it, and then they lost the game, so they talk trash. And the thing about people like hating on, like Jared Dudley saying, "Cantor, you're bad." That's Jared Dudley. You're bad.
I like
what
that.
Are you talking about? You can't talk like. We're complaining about a bad team talking trash to another bad team, but that's just like a bad player talking trash to a pretty good player. I don't know. That was weirder to me than I guess he was protecting his teammate, but he did a bad job in my opinion. And
Tom,
also, I got one thing left to say. Apparently on NBA TV, the Suns were playing today, and Jared Dudley was in, and Clyde Drexler said Jared Dudley looks like a dad at the YMCA.
It's pretty good. He kind of always has it. At this age, it's not helping him either. Tom, are you more old man get off my lawn, or do you like this, or what?
I mean, yeah, this isn't really my sort of thing. Like, I think Cantor's a little corny. I think he's probably. I bet his teammates like him, but I don't know that. Like he can be a little cheesy. He kind of tries a little too hard in my eyes. He tries a little bit to be like Joel Embiid, but Embiid's just naturally funnier, in my opinion. Like better at insulting people in a funny, lighthearted way. I could have done without this one. Putting down a team that is one of the worst in the league. Like, act like you've been there before a little bit in my eyes. But I don't know. It's fun. It's Twitter. Like that's part of what makes the NBA fun is guys going at each other on social media. I just like it to be done just a little better executed, I guess.
I just picture Greg Popovich showing his team the tweets and stuff before the game and being like, if you ever do this, you're not a San Antonio Spur. Like you need to know that.
Yeah. But again, he started a fight.
Yeah.
So that's just what happens. And I think the funnier part was his next Instagram after the hold that L. It was just him sitting like on a bench reading a book, and it said, "Have a good weekend."
Saw that.
Yeah.
That's a good Instagram.
There's some fun to it. I guess it's just I don't know. I'm starting to struggle with Embiid when they lose games and he still acts like that. I guess I'm turned into an old man. I don't know. I'll say on the other end, the NBA got yelled at for years about guys not being too competitive, and something like that in a Knicks Suns game. Hopefully, the next time you play, that turns into better basketball. I guess that's a generic bad answer that I'm not even happy with. But the final kind of layup topic that I think needed to mention because it was news this week: Kristaps Porzingis, the All-Star, and Frankie Futures, which I'm going to throw into the nickname list. But yeah, I don't know. Are we? Is this optimism in Knicks country? We have a young All-Star and we have a young guy in the futures game. I'll pass it off to Tombo first. I know you were looking into some a couple of the nuances with the world versus the U.S. team type thing going on. We talked about it in pre-production a little bit about something that I think is something Knicks fans are scared to ask, but is Frank deserving? Was kind of a question mark. What do you think on that?
Well, I think calling what we do before the pod pre-production is really dangerous. But I mean, first of all, it's cool that Kristaps is an all-star. He's like 22 years old. Yeah, that's definitely something for the Knicks to hang their hat on. Another thing, I don't know if you guys saw, but Kevin Durant was asked which player he was most excited to play with in the All-Star game, and he said Porzingis, which I thought was an interesting answer. I mean, especially since Durant's the one who coined the term unicorn, kind of coming full circle there, so it was a little neat. But
and Durant's about to be a free agent too.
Oh boy, here we go.
And so is LeBron. Think about it. KP, LeBron, Durant, same team. I don't know.
You heard it here first, folks. But yeah, Frank in the Rising Stars game, I don't know if they just needed someone to be on Team World. I really don't know how they went and selected these teams, but you know what? I like his odds. Team World versus Team USA, they're looking pretty stacked with Embiid, Ben Simmons. I didn't know Buddy Hield was from the Bahamas, but there you go. Lauri Markkanen's looked really good. And, you know, Frank, I think, is going to get a chance to show what he can do in this game. It's always fun because, I mean, first of all, Frank's very good at defense, and this isn't a game where they're going to play a lot of defense, but hopefully he showcases some of his skills on the offensive end and loosens up and plays free.
Yeah, it'll be nice for him to have a little fun. I think he's dunked it before. He's had a couple dunks this year, so we'll see. Hopefully, see him try to get up and see how athletic he really is. Try to get some fast break dunks, and that'll be fun. I mean, the big thing is Porzingis being the All-Star is huge. I mean, Melo's been an All-Star for a long time. I mean, he was an All-Star when we got him. This is our very own All-Star. You know, we drafted him. We saw what he had these first 2 years. We've seen him grow, and now maybe he's not ready to carry a team deep into the playoffs, but he's shown that someday he may be. And being an All-Star at 22 on your rookie contract is a good sign.
Greg, on I don't know if it's the swag front, but in a game like this, you know, the point total is winner's going to be closest to 2 bills, basically. And I don't know, it's going to be fun seeing Frank out there because it's kind of like it's a you belong moment. You know, he's going to be out there against Lonzo Ball, with Ben Simmons, with Joel Embiid. Not to be corny, but quite literally the rising stars of the NBA. And they're going to be out there, Donovan Mitchell. People are going to be trying to break the rim. And I think it's going to be good to see Frank in that environment and watch him swag out and not necessarily be worried about trying to lock down or make mistakes, this, that, and the other. So that's cool. And yeah, KP was pretty close to being an all-star starter. He said he had a couple quotes there that were minor shots across the bow at Embiid that he thinks he should be the starter, which you like to see. It's good to know Staps has that fire in him, and having a target to gun for isn't necessarily a good thing. I feel like there's a good business phrase about that. Our competition brings greatness. I don't know. Those are phrases. I want to use them in everyday life. But Tom, KP, Frank?
I mean, yeah, that's some art of the deal stuff you're spitting over there. Pretty good. But, I missed it, though. What did he say about Embiid? I didn't catch that part.
It wasn't anything it wasn't anything gnarly. I don't even think he named Embiid by name, but he said he very much felt he should be a starter. And I think he was implying at the forward position. Greg, do you know what I'm talking about? Am I
Yeah.
dreaming this?
So KP won, or Embiid won the fan vote and the media vote, but Porzingis won the player vote. So he said the players know I should be the starter. Was the quote, which is fair because he won the player vote. I guess.
Factually accurate.
No controversy there, but no, that's good. It's good for him to at least acknowledge it. It's exciting stuff, man. I'm looking forward to watching the game, seeing how Kristaps performs in that environment. And yeah, it's something you look for in some of the foreign players is just kind of like how they relate to their teammates and everything. It's like been a topic of conversation before, and just in terms of the locker room. And it seems like Porzingis gets along really well with all of his teammates, right? And I think that's kind of like somewhere in the All-Star game you can see where how people's personalities sort of interact with others, other big personalities.
Yeah, I think one good thing about Frank that I didn't mention in this game is it'll be nice for him to play against a team that's not playing defense. So he's had a tendency to turn it over recently. He's had a tendency all year, but recently it's gotten like pretty painful to watch at times.
Yeah.
So,
and he's a couple games against teams not playing defense after playing Phoenix. Zing!
Where you at, Jared Dudley?
Jeez, Jared Dudley, get at me.
Jared Dudley's the second worst pick and roll defender in the league.
Greg, you and Jared Dudley are tight though because of.
Yeah, we both went to Boston College, different times though. My one of my roommates met him at a tailgate one time.
Go Eagles.
He's like a really nice guy. Is the thing. He'll probably end up being the Boston College basketball coach someday if I had to guess.
Ooh, hot takes continue.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's people think that.
Talking BC Eagles. Well, those are the topics I had. I should have teased this earlier because it's been the sexy talk, especially this time of year and when the Knicks season starts going down the tubes a little bit. But I thought we'd talk some trade talk. There's been a lot swirling lately. The Knicks, and I wrote it in my manifesto, pats himself on the back. And, something I'm really looking forward to is the Knicks have assets that can help teams. There's no hot take, not even a good take there. But the Knicks should be active at this trade deadline. If the Knicks aren't active at this trade deadline, something has gone wrong. But obviously with Reddit, Twitter, everything that goes on, this, that, and the other. So I kind of wanted to get our takes on a couple trade ideas, whether it's something you heard or something you've thought of. I'll bat leadoff, and I'm going to do a 1.5 because we put Kenny on the case, and then he dipped out on us because he was sick, and we just don't take sick days here. I was kind of eyeing things around Beasley as I hyped him up earlier in the show. What he does on offense when it's right, which it's been right about 80% of the time this year, he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. And so the first thing I kind of dreamed up, I'll just say this one quick. The 76ers, just another wing scorer and someone that these guys I feel like it's mean when I say this, but everybody loves Michael Beasley. Around the league, he's always getting dapped up. Everyone on the Knicks loves Michael Beasley. So on this young team, I think it would be cool for them to interact with him. It'd almost be like a warning sign too, like watch how dirty this dude is, but if you kind of dick around your first couple years in the league, like you're not going to get the love. So I think, and the other thing is they have kind of this plethora of late first round wings they've built up. Justin Anderson, Furkan Korkmaz, and Luwawu Karabit, the Frenchman, who I have to rule him out because I watched the Sixers play tonight. I mentioned that. I didn't know which one of these guys they love the most. But Furkan Korkmaz hasn't been playing at all. He's played in like 6 games. He's still 20. I don't know how high they are. I haven't seen the gentleman practice. Anderson's interesting. He played all 4 years at Virginia, or maybe he left as a junior. had a weird hand injury, defensive guy, supposed to be 3-and-D. You know, if I'm Philly and the Knicks are like, hey, Beasley's out there, bring this guy in, he could win you a playoff game. You know, for someone like Anderson who might not be a part of their future, I could see that lining up as a trade, not just because they're lefties. But let me drop the nuke on you guys, because here's the deal. Oklahoma City, someone we're already friendly with trade-wise, hashtag Carmelo trade. They just had Andre Roberson go down. They're a team that was already short bodies they could trust. What if they could do Courtney Lee and Beasley? So Beasley, you're out of the Sixers trade, sorry. For Terrence Ferguson, who was a mid to late first-round pick, he's shown moments, but he's also shown a lot of bad moments. Alex Abrines, who I feel like I'm going to let Greg give his thoughts on. Josh Hustis and Dakari, Dakari Johnson? I'm blanking on Dakari's last name.
Out of Kentucky.
The mostly cap guys. Hustis has kind of been a wasted G League old pick for them. But for them to bring in Courtney Lee and Beasley, Courtney Lee's what they've been looking for years. A 3-and-D specialist who can just do his thing and lamp later on, paid in the shade with some fly gators on. That's a song. Bring Beasley in as that X factor and another body that they can play and trust. I don't know. If I'm Oklahoma City, so the risk here is Ferguson, what he turns out to be. And if you're Oklahoma City, I don't really care what Terrence Ferguson turns into 3 years from now, because all of your eggs are currently in the basket. Even if Terrence Ferguson turns into a star, you kind of that 5% chance, you can't bank on that right now. That's just not where your team's at. And for the Knicks to do this trade, they probably have to cut Jarrett Jack, hashtag Trey Burke Show. And then they'd have to either cut or trade another body with Kylo Quinn, whoever it may be who's on the trade block right now. So, guys, I just spent a winded minute talking about 1.5 trades. Tom, I'll go to you first. What did you like? What did you dislike from what I said?
Well, I think that I'll start with the Thunder one. I could definitely see the Thunder wanting Courtney Lee. His contract for the next 2 years after this one, I wonder, their owner is kind of like notoriously cheap, probably isn't the right word, but he does not want to ever go over the tax line there. So I just wonder what the implications would be on that front, because I know they're not giving up much in the way of long-term salary there. I guess Abrines is a 1 year after this for about $5.5 to $6 million. I don't know. I don't have as strong of a take on Abrines as I know Greg has talked about him before, but yeah, like that seems like the Knicks getting back 4 players. That would mean that they would need to cut 2 off of their current roster. Is that right, Greg? You're kind of the salary cap man.
Yeah, you gotta have roster space as of the time of the trade, so they wouldn't be able to cut the Thunder players.
So Jake, yeah, you mentioned Jarrett Jack. Did you say a second one that you just?
It would if the Knicks believed in this deal, you cut Jarrett Jack, so now it's 1 roster spot, and then you probably piggyback another trade off of it, and teams are talking about Kylo Quinn or whether it's Lance Thomas or Dougie Fresh, someone like that. If you believed in this trade, I think you make another trade happen, whether it's to just get a pick back or 2 for 1 or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have talked up Ferguson's potential value a little bit. I haven't really watched him play at all. I know Hustis has kind of made himself a rotation player there in Oklahoma City. He's getting about 15 minutes per game. He's not doing much in the way of production. He's scoring 2 points, averaging 2 rebounds. So I don't know what their allegiance is to him, but he's a 6'7", 230-pound wing. He just turned 26, so he's kind of right in the same age range as their other guys in their prime. But he probably isn't the answer for them. I could see Oklahoma City wanting to do this, and could the Knicks get more out of Courtney Lee? That's the question. I don't know that they could. Wow. What do you think, Greg?
Hey, it's a good question. I mean, it all comes down to how you feel about Terrence Ferguson, I guess. And I mean, as we were talking, Beasley is a good player too. So maybe we valuing them together, we should be getting more than Terrence Ferguson and some dead weight. I was talking about, I don't really love Abrinas. He could shoot it. Defensive liability, maybe. Young guy, 24. He could be friends with Willie, though. They're both Spanish. So that we were talking about the factor of friendship. So there's that. But like you were saying, the Thunder are all in right now. Paul George's contract is up this year. Melo's is up after next year. So you got a 1 to 2 year window going right now before you got to make some serious decisions, and those decisions aren't entirely up to you. Those players have a say too. So you're gonna wait to see if Terrence Ferguson can be good in, I don't know, 2 to 3 years, and then you wouldn't have those other guys. So like Jake was saying, the Thunder kind of have to go for it right now because they don't have a long window. So I agree. The Thunder should be looking for something. I don't know that Courtney Lee and Michael Beasley is worth that little, though, because like we said, that there was some dead weight in that deal, and we were really just getting back Terrence Ferguson, who has shown flashes, as Jake has mentioned, but he hasn't done much. Quaestis is I don't know. He's not much. His NBA story is kind of a weird one. The Thunder took him in the first round, seemingly because he agreed that he would not play for the Thunder in his first NBA season. He agreed to go to the D League and then sign his rookie contract the following year. So he really wasn't a first-round talent. He just got drafted in the first round due to some crazy scenario where the Thunder didn't want to take on a rookie deal. So I don't really like that guy. Continuing on, I suggested Lance Thomas for Abrinas straight up. I don't think that the Thunder have like very many assets. Like we said, Terrence Ferguson is their main chip. Everybody else on the team who is a rotation player, you wouldn't want to trade right now. So I don't know. That might be they might be looking more at a deal like that. I don't know if they could get a player like Courtney Lee. I think we should be trying to get something better, hopefully. I don't know. And as Jake, I also mentioned that I think the Knicks might want a player like Courtney Lee for the next 2 years on his contract. And that mentioned that last week. You weren't here.
Yeah, well, let me take the knife out of my chest. Interesting Alex Abrinas comparison. How about Marco Bellinelli? I could see him having a very similar career. Kind of soft off guards that can shoot it a little bit. I don't know, just something to watch out for. But, okay, you guys shoot down my trade. I'm hanging on by a thread. Greg, tell us the trade that's going to happen.
So, wait. Sorry.
Please.
On your Beasley trade, I did like that one.
Okay.
The 76ers today, Embiid was +8 in his time, in his 36 minutes. And in the 12 minutes he wasn't on the field, on the court, they were -18. So having a guy like Beasley could be very helpful to them.
Well, thanks.
So that one was good.
I'm okay.
So one terrible one good one by you. So I also mentioned this trade last week. Iman Shumpert and the Cavaliers' first-round pick this year for Courtney Lee. So that was the simple deal. Shumpert's been a little injured, fallen a little out of favor. A lot of people think he's not great anymore. He's had a lot of potential for a long time, I would say. That potential hasn't turned into much. He was shooting well at the beginning of last year, slowly faded, ended up not doing great through the rest of the season, and this year he has not done much. So Cavaliers have the Brooklyn pick, so they're allowed to trade their own pick this year, which is, I don't know, it'll be like mid-20s. So it's not much, but it's something. And Shumpert's got a expiring deal. He's got a player option for next year, so we'll see if he picks that up or not. I don't know. What do you think about that, Tom? Or Jake? I don't care.
You gotta think Shumpert's gonna pick up that $11 million, right? Because even when he becomes a unrestricted free agent the next year, he'll only be 28. So it's not like he'll be too old to get a long-term deal. And I just think 11 mil is way more than his market value right now. So yeah, I have to imagine he'll pick that up. But
we'd be shedding an extra year on Lee's contract too.
For sure, and if the Knicks can pick up a first rounder, I like that deal. I mean, because the Cavaliers' regular season record is not going to be that great, so like that first rounder, they may want to protect it heavily or something, but like that could be a decent pick, you know.
Hey, you're a little muffled, Tom, but yeah, it could be a decent pick. I mean, low. What are they? They're probably going to be, I don't know, the 3 seed in the East. There's probably 4 teams better in the West. So we're looking at like 23, 24, hopefully. But they could also climb up and be higher than that.
We've mentioned throughout the year as a mini debate point a first for Courtney Lee, where that stands, and yeah, it'd be an okay deal. I think Shumpert easily picks up that option because I like Tom saying he's young enough that he could still get a multi-year deal, but I don't think he's good at basketball enough to get a multi-year deal. So I think that's an interesting one. You know Cleveland's going to be asking, and you know in the back of their heads they're doing everything they can to not give up the Brooklyn pick, but still keep LeBron happy and make it look like they're doing everything they can to contend. So, yeah, I don't hate it, Greg.
No, it sounds good. It sounded like the Cavaliers are interested or close to getting George Hill, which is probably not the answer to anyone's question at this point. But yeah, like if they do in fact get George Hill from the Kings, then their need for Courtney Lee may diminish. So that's just something to look for.
Yeah, and that'd be the rumored deal with there is Channing Frye and Shumpert and Derrick Rose or some assortment of things like that, and no first round pick for George Hill because George Hill is making I think $20 million this year, $19 million next year. So they're really just trying to eat salary for the Kings, doing each other favors.
Yeah, and we know that the Cavs are kind of hedging their bets between LeBron leaving next year and potentially staying. So I don't know how reticent they are to give up that first round pick, but if they will, then yeah, I think that's a move that the Knicks should make.
Yeah.
For legal purposes, you guys know I can't talk about George Hill. Although he'd probably be a great fit on Cleveland. The way he can shoot and defend a little bit, he's kind of exactly what they need right now. So take that, Tom, next time we talk George Hill. And speaking of, Tom, what trade do you have for the Knickerbockers?
So, Jake, kind of in the mold of what you did going off of Andre Roberson's injury, I was looking at DeMarcus Cousins, who just went down for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's a huge part of what they do there. They are hanging by a thread to the in the playoff picture there, and yeah, without Cousins for the second half of the season, it's going to be a real struggle. They desperately need a backup center at this point. Like Omar Ashik, they signed him a few years ago in one of the worst deals. It's been perennially the worst deal in the NBA, I think. And so, yeah, they frankly just don't have anyone to play backup center. And that's when you factor in playing Anthony Davis at center to start, which is a position he doesn't really historically like to play. He likes to play power forward and let Cousins do some of the more of the banging. So my deal was Kyle O'Quinn, who's one of the better backup centers in the league, for Alexis Ajinça and a first-round pick. Ajinça is a center on the Pelicans who has 2 more years and is about $10 million of basically just dead salary. He's hurt for the rest of this year, and even when he's healthy, he's not much of a factor. So basically, it's Kyle O'Quinn for $10 million of dead salary and a first-round pick from New Orleans, which, I mean, New Orleans has to make the playoffs. Alvin Gentry is coaching for his job. Anthony Davis, they're just praying he doesn't force a trade out of there. He's their entire franchise. They need to see a little bit of success. And so it's really playoffs or bust for them at this point. And I think Kyle O'Quinn is a stepping stone to getting there for them. They need someone to play backup center.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. The one thing I would say is they've also got a little eye on the future. They're looking to sign DeMarcus Cousins long term. So in order to have a better team long term, you got Kyle O'Quinn, who's got this player option that he may opt out of. So you may want that first round pick to be able to secure the future. But right now, playoffs are bust. You're right. But maybe they would want someone on a longer deal. But again, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking about the future because they're another one of those teams who's caught between the future and the present. They're straddling, trying to figure out what to do, especially after this injury.
Yeah, my thought there was just that basically Kyle O'Quinn and Ajinça have almost the exact same contract. So you're basically just swapping those players, and one's a major upgrade on the other. So you're going to be paying that money regardless. It's just in this scenario, you're doing it for a better player.
Kyle O'Quinn's going to be the most interesting player for the Knicks trade deadline, I think, just because he's a big man that can do a little bit of everything. He can be a small ball 5 if you want. He still plays solid defense. He can pass the ball. He can shoot a little bit. It's one of my favorite quotes from Park and Rec is, "Oh, we got an old-fashioned waffle iron bidding war on our hands." A little Kyle O'Quinn bidding war could be a good thing. I know he seems to fit with a couple teams that are out there. Denver could use him, New Orleans a little bit. Not a lot of money, very solid player. He's going to be interesting to see. And I think I was going to say remiss again. Would be the second time I've said remiss, so I'm not going to say it. But I think it was funny because when we originally talked about this, there's 4 names that kind of jump out. We ripped on Kenny earlier for saying that we should try to trade Jarrett Jack. I had to sneak that in because we got to chuckle at that. If we get a second round pick for Jarrett Jack, I'll give Kenny one of the firmest handshakes I have. But for the Knicks trade wise right now, it seems to be O'Quinn. He should be moved. Beasley in the right fit. It just depends if a team can buy in on the Michael Beasley idea. Courtney Lee seems to fit any winner in what they're doing. His contract's just a little, you roll your eyes at the end. And then I guess Doug and Lance, if you need to finish a trade type of thing. The name that we really struggled with as a crew was Enes Kanter, who seemingly should be a guy on the trade block. He's making $17 million. He makes more than he probably deserves for his defensive liabilities. We kind of all looked, and the trade market is not looking so hot for him. It would have to be kind of an ugly trade with Portland. They've got some dead weight. Do they want a body? New Orleans, if they really want to go in, hell, Kyle O'Quinn, give me Enes Kanter and his tweets, Or the only other team that really jumped out to me was the Milwaukee Bucks. They get abused on the boards pretty bad, which is kind of surprising. And I don't know. That's the thing where Enes is at this point. He's a known commodity, and there's bad parts to it, but there's also good parts to it. So it's a team. I don't know, Tom. When you mentioned Anthony Davis, I pictured, okay, Anthony Davis is a freak on defense. Do they think Anthony Davis can clean up enough of Enes's, lapses on defense to make it work? Do either? I guess this long-winded statement is me asking you guys: do you think there's any way Enes Kanter is traded this year?
I would say no during the season. It's really tough with a contract as big as his, and especially since he's getting overpaid too. So you need. It's a lot easier in the offseason to trade a big contract for a player like that. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Kanter stands to make $18.6 million next year. He'll almost certainly opt in. I shouldn't even say almost. He'll certainly opt in next year. And it's a tough ask. It's tough for a team to send back matching salary unless they really want to get off something. But they're not just the assets you'll get back in return for Kanter don't equal what he can do on the court. I think his reputation isn't great among coaches. And that is probably partly unfair. But the fact of the matter is, he is such a defensive liability. Milwaukee has struggled on defense this year. The Bucks are the 22nd ranked defense. The Pelicans are the 23rd ranked defense. I don't think that bringing in Cantor is going to be solving any of their issues, and they probably see it that way too, is my guess.
Yeah, there's too many things in motion that it almost seems easiest and best for the team to just kind of let him expire next year, unless you stumble into something. But I don't know. That's tough because I feel like he's on the tip of everyone's tongues when you talk trade, but I just don't see it right now. What else you guys got? Any final thoughts? Whether it's trade, Frank. What else did we talk this episode? Talking Grammys? What else? Greggy?
I think I had a fun little trade that I just wanted to bring up. We don't have to
Sure.
talk about it. It won't happen. This is more of along the friendship line we've been talking. The Courtney Lee and Doug McDermott for Kenneth Fareed and Juancho Hernan Gomez. Just get another Hernan Gomez. Who cares? Keep it in the family.
Keep it in the family and keep it international.
Yeah,
before the season, we dreamed of the all-international Knicks, which I'm still all in on, by the way.
Let's do it. Well, one thing we also haven't talked about, I don't know if you were going to get to it. You probably were. We'll let Tom go.
Tom?
Greg, I like that trade, actually. I mean, Fareed would be brought into a pretty crowded front court. Do you know how much time he has left on his deal?
He's got next year.
Just next year?
I
mean, yeah, that's not so bad. And I like Juancho. I mean, he's more of a wing type player than his brother is, who's more of a traditional big. He's like a small ball four type. I'd like that move a lot for the Knicks.
Yeah, and both of those guys have kind of fallen a little bit out of favor in Denver. So being able to get a guy like Courtney Lee and Doug McDermott at that for two guys who you don't really love putting into the basketball game. Fareed's averaging 14.9 minutes this year. So
yeah, he's a better player than that.
That's not how you picture Fareed.
That's the same as Josh Hustis.
Luckily, we displayed Doug McDermott so well in the game at Denver. Ron Baker started, Doug McDermott 1 minute played. That I can't go there right now physically. Tom, some closing notes, closing thoughts.
Well, I mean, we talk about it almost every pod. The Knicks are 10th in the East. They're 4 games out of the 8 seed. The 76ers are at the 8 seed at 24 and 22. It just seems like every week playoffs get further and further from view. And I'm just curious, like, are we just all in now? I think in past weeks we've been kind of towing the line. Are we ready to just say, like, let's rebuild? Like, playoffs are probably not going to happen?
Never, in my book. Like I've said, we got Tim Hardaway Jr. and Porzingis, so there's not going to be a full commitment to rebuilding at any point this season, or to tanking. Maybe they'll commit to putting Frank in the starting lineup, but we're going to be trying to win all season long because we get our 2-star players. So I don't know. I don't think it's coming. And we got the upcoming games against the Nets and the Hawks this week, so that may at home. So that might be 2 W's if we're doing predictions.
Yeah, I mean, talk about your segues. I'll partially agree with Greg, Tommy. I mean, I think the date that I'm gonna circle and put in red, kind of the All-Star break. All-Star break, you catch your breath, you see where you are. If it's 5+ games out, something like that, you kind of see where you are. If Kristaps has some injuries, Tim Hardaway, things are acting up, yeah, you really start pushing that way. And we'll see what they end up doing at the deadline. I mean, the deadline could be a very much wow moment for Knicks fans if, say, O'Quinn, Courtney Lee, and I don't know, another rotation player, whether it's Lance, Doug, the team could look very different. So that could change the opinion. But between now and the All-Star break, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. And I've been waiting for it for too long now since the Knicks had their 17 and 11 stretch. But the Knicks pull a 7 and 9. I think we're screaming from the rafters we shouldn't have traded Courtney Lee, and we're we're going to beat Boston in the first round of the playoffs. So, Tom, do you have a hard sell before we talk about next week a little more?
I'm ready for next week, man. Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got
Jake.
Yeah.
The All-Star break is what's the date of that? Do you know?
It is the weekend of. I thought it was the weekend of like the 17th. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it sounds right to me. But the trade deadline is the 8th. So
right.
We're making our decision before. So I see where you're at.
Which is coming up really quickly. It's going to be interesting because this is the first year they moved up the trade deadline. No,
that's right.
So that will be. I'll circle that date too. Why not? February 8th at Toronto. But for this week, we're home versus Brooklyn, and boy, do we look great when we play those Brooklyn Nets. Back to back, we're going to Boston, ESPN game. Friday, we're going to Milwaukee. And then Sunday, we host Atlanta at home. So, and Greg, I'm going to start with you to get the troops rowdy because we've got home games against Atlanta and Brooklyn.
Need those games. Need to win those games. So,
and tell the people we're going to win the other two. Why not?
Need those games. ESPN game against the Celtics. We beat the Jazz on ESPN last time we were on ESPN. So, we'll put that one in the win column.
Wow.
Bucks just fired their coach recently. They've been looking pretty decent since then, though. So, I mean, we'll just put that in the win column, too, anyway. So, 4-0 week. No, I got it at 2-2. Win the obvious ones, lose the other ones.
Twos, Tom Bodadin?
I'd be a lot more confident in the Knicks beating the Celtics if Marcus Smart were playing.
Ooh.
Yes.
Couple zingers today.
Yeah, I mean, we should just keep this one simple. Knicks are going to win the home, likely lose the away. I'm going to go 2-2 as well. It's definitely possible to beat the Celtics, to beat the Bucks on the road, but like Greg said, that Bucks have looked really good since Kidd was fired, and he really was creating some issues for them over there. So, 2-2. I'm with Greg.
That has to be the worst feeling as a head coach. You get fired and the team takes off. You know what? I'll feed the monster at this point. The Celtics are, let's see,
1-5.
1-5 in their last 6.
Yeah.
And they're currently on a road trip, so they're going to be wrapping that up. Give me the Celtics, yeah. And this is where, Tom, you mentioned it before the show. Someone was calling out John Boy for shoddy reporting. I'm not reporting. I'm still a fan at heart. And if we're playing the Celtics, I'm going to say that's a win unless it's the last game of the year and we need the loss to get a better pick, basically. So give me a 3-1 next week. We're all hyped up at the end of next week. We're keeping Courtney Lee. We're winning the title. I really hope not, actually. So
you don't want us to win the title?
Oh, no. I'll take the title. We get the Brooklyn pick from the Cavs, win the lottery, normal Knicks stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. I keep looking – and, Tom, to spin it to you, making a great point, how many more 1-2 weeks do we have to go through until me and Greg take off our optimistic hat and say, come on, like bury the season, cancel the season.
They're only 2 behind the 76ers in the win column. They're 4 games back, but they're 2 behind in the win column. So if we won 2 games, we would have the same amount of wins as the team in 8th place.
So, and they just lost to Oklahoma City tonight. And the Pistons are just falling off the face of the earth. So, I don't know. There's still some sense of hope.
It's something we ask every week. So, I just figured I'd bring it up.
Some sense of hope, says the dejected man. Unless you guys got any final thoughts, I think it's time to wrap her up a little bit.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think we got it all.
That's it.
Good there, boys.
Wait. Kenny probably would have said, I don't know. I want to say he would say 1-3, but I can't picture him saying we would lose to the Nets or the Hawks. I think even a pessimist like him would give us those games at home. So,
all right. So
and he's on the record as 2-2.
Kenny says 0-4. Thanks for listening, guys. I think good episode Talking Knicks, a little format change. Maybe we'll keep changing. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But we appreciate you listening. If you're not following on Twitter at Talking Knicks, usually live tweeting the games, doing a lot of fun stuff. We've been pumping out articles. I got my manifest out there. I think I'm going to do a trade article. Tom always has like really well-written articles if you're into that kind of thing. Greg, as I mentioned, is the real MVP end of the day. We do the post-game recaps. We do it all. If you like this and you don't listen to Talking Yanks, do that too. I don't know, guys. We're trying to pump out the stuff, and I guess end of the day, go Knicks. Thanks for listening, and send some feedbacks. Give us your trades, things like that. All right. So we appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.